Hello there. Welcome into an interesting Monday edition of the show. So glad to have you back. Whether you're listening on your radio, online at extrasports1300.com, or through the Extra Sports 1300 app. I apparently was just giving all of my hot takes to the ether. We, if you haven't noticed, we've been off the air for about an hour. Across the street from where I work, car accident took out our power. And now it is back on. All systems go. But now I look at the clock and I say, I got 55 minutes until our coverage of Monday Night Football. So I better get to it. Fire away on the text line, 719-247-1313. Let's start with the Denver Broncos and their game against the Tennessee Titans yesterday. Here's my biggest takeaway. Bo Nix needs to chill. There's a fine line between being a fiery competitor, which is good. It's a virtuous trait to have as an athlete. But on the other side of that line, and it is thin, is being a hothead. And I thought Bo Nix was on the wrong side of that line most of yesterday. When you turn the ball over 3 times, or at this point 2 times, you can't show up your receiver like Bo Nix did. I think it was Lucas Kroll who was going through a space in the Titans defense. And Bo Nix, I think rightly, wanted him to settle down right in that open spot so he could pass it to him. Well, he threw it. Kroll is gone. Okay, it happens. Frustrating, sure. But you can't do the pointing over and over again that Bo Nix was doing. Not when you turn it over twice, because you're not pulling your weight around here either. So showing up your receiver like that shows that you're being a little bit frayed by how this game has played out. And when you are turning the ball over 3 times and you start jawing with an opposing player, which Bo Nix was doing all afternoon long with Jeffrey Simmons, you know what it looks like? It looks like the Titans got under your skin. It looks like you are rattled. And the theme of this Broncos season is the book is more out on Bo Nix than it ever has been, right? There's more intel on Bo Nix today than there was this time a year ago. And now there's going to be an additional paragraph written based on what you saw against the Titans that if you run your mouth a little bit, you can get under Bo Nix's skin and his play will be impacted. That's what yesterday looked like. It looked like a guy who was rattled by things not going to plan. And I think that his play needed to calm down a little bit too. He looked completely panicked in the pocket. Pro Football Focus, and you know where I am on Pro Football Focus. It's another data point. I don't take it as gospel, but I look at it as some sort of indicator, maybe to back up what I see with my eyes. Pro Football Focus had the Broncos offensive line as one of the best pass blocking units in the NFL yesterday. But yet it looked like Bo Nix was under constant pressure. And that I'm saying that's Bo Nix. That's Bo Nix getting happy feet. inside the pocket. He made two very poor decisions throwing the football. It's one thing to roll out to your left and throw it 5 yards down the field. It's another thing to throw it 15, 20 yards down the field like Bo Nix tried to do. That's not a good idea. It's a bad plan. And it got picked off. And then later in the game, he throws into double coverage trying to get it to Troy Franklin. And yesterday was so bad for Bo Nix that he did the one thing that is unthinkable for Bo Nix. Everything he is as a quarterback is that he doesn't hold the ball too long. He doesn't take sacks. He is the anti-Russell Wilson. And yet, what did he do? Held on to the ball too long, got sacked, lost the football. It was a horrendous start to his second season. A season that, mind you, he's supposed to start his ascension to the ranks of Allen and Lamar and Mahomes and Burrow. That's what Sean Payton has promised. That he'll be a top 4 or 5 quarterback. Yesterday was supposed to be the start of that ascent. And instead, you're looking back at a performance where he is the 5th worst rated passer in the NFL in week 1. And he's not in a group with Burrow, Mahomes, Lamar, and Allen. He's in a group with Russell Wilson, Cam Ward, Tua, and Bryce Young. That's what company he kept with his performance yesterday. And I think what's behind this, I think and it's impossible not to, right? Athletes can talk about tuning stuff out and they don't listen. Well, when the talk comes from your own head coach, it's a little bit more difficult to ignore. Sean Payton has been anointing Bo Nix all offseason. I got to imagine when that Kool-Aid is passed around that it would be hard for Bo Nix not to take a sip. Perhaps he's believing in Sean Payton's hype. And that's where I say now the Titans are trash talking him and he's playing horrendously bad. It looked to me like the plan was to showcase Bo Nix, right? For Bo Nix to get out there, sling it around the yard, put up big numbers, shut it down, call it a day around the midway through the third quarter. Not that he'd be subbed out, but just he'd stop throwing the ball as much. And when the Titans, to their credit a little bit here, screwed that plan up, it looked like he completely lost his mind. And here's the thing, only going to get tougher. That was a game where you do need to credit the Titans defense, but there is no threat on that other sideline when it comes to the opposing offense. You watch Cam Ward in that Titans offense. There was no threat from the other side. Now look at some of the games on the Broncos schedule the rest of the way and see that there are defenses better than Tennessee. And there are certainly offenses that Bo Nix is going to be pressured to match better than the Tennessee Titans. How is he going to fare when things get really difficult in about 2 weeks? Because you saw the game in Sao Paulo just like I did. You think that Bo Nix you saw yesterday is ready to go toe-to-toe with the Justin Herbert we saw in Brazil on Friday? Does he look ready at all to match Joe Burrow throw for throw? Does he look ready to not only try to match Jalen Hurts, but go up against the Eagles' defense? I'm not saying he needed to be perfect yesterday, but he was the opposite. And the thing that just stays with me, because as I'll point out later, some of the poor decision-making by Bo Nix, it's not new. It's been kind of a thing recently. The thing that sticks with me is the showing up of his receiver by frantically pointing angrily at the spot where he wanted his receiver to be. And then the back and forth where he had to be held back. That's not being a fiery competitor. That's somebody who's got his mind on other things than winning the football game. That was a bad first impression of year 2 Bo Nix. But he didn't go it alone yesterday. Isn't there supposed to be somebody that can help him with things like play calling? To perhaps notice that he's struggling a little bit, or, far be it for me, but maybe not put the pressure on him immediately to start the game? Where was that guy on Sunday? 719-247-1313. We'll talk about it next. Not the start that the Broncos were hoping to have. They do escape with a 20-12 win. How does Vegas, by the way, keep doing this? The line was 8.5. It's crazy. It's almost like they've built giant buildings and hotels in the desert because of their ability to pinpoint these lines. Taking your thoughts at 719-247-1313. This text comes in, and I understand the preface of this. It's not because of this. I know I get labeled that and I suppose I could say you sticking up for Bo Nix could be because you're a Broncos fan. This is not because of the team I root for. I do try to separate that. Now, I make no bones about who I'm rooting for when Kansas City plays Denver or when Kansas City plays any game, but I try to separate a little bit. This is not a Kansas City fan take, right? It's easy to do that, but I'm telling you it's not. Here's what it is. Because I do appreciate the rest of your text, and it actually goes to my point. From the 719, give him time. You're so quick to say he's bad. He's still young. Last year it took a couple of weeks. I think he'll be fine and go toe-to-toe with Herbert. I don't know that I agree with that sentiment, but I agree with the first part of that. He showed last year against the Bengals he's already made some insane plays. Let him play a few more before we judge. A lot of sloppy games yesterday. More salient points than not with the text. And it actually leads me into my next point. Because I'm not saying that Bo Nix, because of yesterday, is now doomed to fail forever. Okay, but this was supposed to be somewhat short of a coronation for Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos this year, and they stubbed their toe in a big way. They did not impress whatsoever. But you lead me into my next point. Sean Payton has to make a decision here. Does he want to win no matter what it takes, whatever form that takes? Or does he only want to win through Bo Nix? And prove once and for all that he is the preeminent quarterback whisperer in National Football League history. Because when I look at yesterday, yes, there is criticism to be levied against Bo Nix fairly. He looked rattled. He played terribly. It doesn't write the book on his entire career, but what I said in the first segment is a fair assessment of what he had yesterday. And don't think for a second other teams aren't taking note about some of Bo Nix's behavior and some of the histrionics. And don't think for a second they're not going to try and get under this guy's skin. And it's something now, along with everything else, he's going to have to prove. And I didn't see a lot of that last year. So that there's the hope, if you're a Broncos fan, that it was just a bad day, that expectations were very high for what the Denver Broncos were going to do yesterday. They fell short of that, and Bo Nix took it poorly. Like, that's possible because I haven't seen some of this stuff in the pocket with his play. Yes, I've seen that before. But some of the other stuff, the jawing with the other team, that kind of stuff, don't see a lot of that from Bo Nix. So maybe it was just a one-off in that. We'll see. But it was a bad look. All last year, all offseason, Sean Payton talked about, we got to be better in the run game. We got to run the ball better. It'll make everything easier. It'll help Bo Nix. We'll ease him into things. Well, he didn't say ease him into things, but he kept stressing the run game, how important it was to get that. He goes out and he gets J.K. Dobbins. He drafts R.J. Harvey and then decides to run them all of 4 times in the first quarter. Yesterday looked to me like it was not as much about analyzing the Titans and their strengths and weaknesses and trying to exploit it, or coming out and running the football and establishing that early on. It was about showcasing Bo Nix. That's what that first quarter looked to me like. Like that was Sean Payton's plan, despite all the talk he's had about the run game. 4 carries for Broncos running backs in the first quarter. Bo Nix threw it 14 times in the first quarter. I'm not calling Bo Nix a kid, but I'll make the comparison. This is one of those that you don't just blame one or the other, but you have to look at the parent. Right? When the kid gets in trouble, you got to look at the parent. And I think yesterday, Sean Payton was more concerned with having Bo Nix light it up than he was with doing what would have been very successful early on, and that is running the football. Sean Payton was asked, to his credit, about that, and he said today that he has to be better, and in retrospect, he should have ran it more because they're vastly improved in that area. So he admitted that we were all right. What did I say on Friday? I want to see the run game. All of this was building towards the Denver Broncos running the football, and they didn't do it. And Sean Payton admitted that it was a mistake. But the question still lingers, why? If there's all this talk this offseason about improving the run game, and you invest resources into the running back position, why wouldn't you come out and run the football? And that's where I'm saying that Sean Payton very much, not more than winning. Don't misunderstand me. Sean Payton is not valuing showcasing Bo Nix more than he values winning. What he's thinking is that if I showcase Bo Nix, we will win and I will look like a quarterback genius. That's what I think is going through the head of Sean Payton yesterday. It's not that he wants Bo Nix to succeed more than they go hand in hand. But my argument is that there was a way to control that game from the outset, to get off to a good start, to maybe help Bo Nix have a better day, and that was running the football, and Sean Payton didn't want to do that. He put too much on Bo Nix. Bo Nix struggled mightily. And it's also simple. I mean, it was right there. I know the Titans have made some changes, but the Titans last year were a pretty good pass rushing team and a pretty bad run defense team. So the formula was there to showcase your vastly improved run game, and then it would be so easy. Play action off of that, roll out Bo Nix, get him out of the pocket to his right, not his left. Don't need to be cute with it. Just roll him out to his right. And I thought that the Broncos could have had a lot more success yesterday doing that. But this is, if he doesn't, and it's funny, I felt like Sean Payton put too much on Bo Nix in the Seattle game to start last year too. It must be a thing about first games of the season. This is how Bo Nix, how people say at the end of the season, Bo Nix had that sophomore slump that Sean Payton doesn't believe exists. Getting too far ahead and taking something that worked very well last year, despite not having a good run game, and pushing it when there was a way to make the Broncos offense overall more effective than it was last year. Run the ball, play action, keep it simple. Let your defense dominate. Instead, it was run when you're deciding on what pass play to call next. Put your defense in a terrible spot all day long and have them rescue you. That was Drew Lock stuff. That was the formula with Drew Lock. It's not supposed to be this way with Bo Nix. That defense is supposed to be there to hold down some of these high-powered offenses in LA and Baltimore and Buffalo and Kansas City. Not to bail them out. The complementary football, that's so important. And it was lacking yesterday. And then he's doing this hockey line change stuff before every play. He's swapping out 4 or 5 guys every single play. And what happened? Play clock ran down. They had to delay a game. They had to burn a timeout. Like, what's the point of all that? This is game 1. I distinctly remember Sean Payton talking about not putting more on Bo Nix's plate. And I know he was talking about, the number of plays and things like that, but wouldn't it apply to all this other stuff? The formula last year worked. What was the formula last year? Don't put too much on Bo Nix. Rely on your elite defense and let the other team make mistakes. That's how the Broncos won a lot of their games, was they were the more competent, well-run team. Not that they were necessarily infinitely more talented or that they made huge play after huge play. It was just they wouldn't beat themselves. And I thought yesterday that the Denver Broncos from the jump were beating themselves as much as the Tennessee Titans were. And if not for some of the Titans' miscues and the Titans beating themselves, who knows what that game would have been. The 3 points that the Broncos were gifted at the end of the half because Brian Callahan had terrible clock management. The numerous penalties on the Tennessee defense. Jeffrey Simmons, apparently him and Bo Nix getting into it also affected him because that was a bonehead thing to do. When Cody Barton had Marvin Mims dead to rights, the play was stopped to just shove for no reason. I think much of that game yesterday was two teams trying to race each other to the bottom. Who can beat themselves better than the other team can? And I think what it is Sean Payton I think he outsmarts himself. It was right there. The game plan was so easy. Run the football, play action off of that, ease Bo Nix into the season, trust the defense, don't make mistakes because the Titans will. And he just wanted to turn it into, New Orleans Saints West. Right? Him and his quarterback protege slinging it around the yard, putting up big numbers. They're not ready for that. And that's the point I keep getting back to. It's not that the Broncos can't be that or will never be that. I don't know. But they're not that now. And I think more of the same from last year to start is in order. And I think what is playing into it a little bit is Sean Payton, with that race to improve, sees what week 3, week 4, week 5 are bringing. And he wants to get this team really humming before then. I think he's putting the cart before the horse a little bit, though, because the Broncos, we saw them through the preseason. We saw the way they ended last season. They need to be brought along a little bit slowly. I don't know if this is because of the heightened expectations that he has placed on his team by talking about them the way he has. But it's like, how about you come up with a good game plan to beat the Titans before you worry about what you're going to do to beat the Chargers, the Bengals, and the Eagles? So Bo Nix, deserving of criticism, but he's in game 1 of year 2. Think you got to kind of even more so look at the guy running the team and say, are you doing what's in the best interest of your young quarterback? Don't think he did that yesterday. I would say it's a lesson better learned in a win, but you know Sean Payton as well as I do. I think it's lip service. I've heard him do the day after mea culpas a lot last year, and then the next week it wasn't different. But the Colts game got a little bit more interesting, didn't it? 719-24-7-1313. Take your thoughts on the Broncos' 8-point win over the Tennessee Titans and why what you saw from Bo Nix yesterday is actually what he's been for a little while now. Our latest nominees for our Extra Sports Athlete of the Week, sponsored by Blackjack Pizza and Salads, are up and ready for your vote at extrasports1300.com. They are, in no particular order, Greg Moore of Lewis Palmer, Donna Paola Martinez, hope I said that right, Luke McAllister of Cheyenne Mountain, and Morgan Holloman of Pine Creek. You could go again to extrasports1300.com and vote for Extra Sports Athlete of the Week. The leading vote getter will hopefully join me. I know these kids, they got busy schedules, but we'll try everything within our power to get them on the show and celebrate their outstanding athletic performances. Taking a couple of your thoughts here. Again, we are pressed for time with the station going off the air last hour. That was fun. And then we got Monday Night Football coming up at the top of the hour. From the 719, Denver just plain and simply looked terrible. It was a lot like the offenses they showcased for several seasons prior to last year. That's what I'm saying. Like, it reminded me of watching the Broncos when they had Drew Lock as their quarterback. That's not the way it's supposed to be. Sanity has supposedly been restored with the Denver Broncos. They have a savvy coach that knows what he's doing. I think Sean Payton was I think he was trying to showcase Bo Nix. I really think that's what it was. Got caught up in that. And it hurt the Broncos yesterday. From the 719, I do agree we need to run more. Try running naked bootlegs, and it expects it to work when you haven't established the run. Of course, they weren't biting. They did run them to the left, though, which is a little bit of a change. Usually you go to the right with the right-handed quarterback. It needed to be better. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. Here's Eric watching the show on Facebook, says the last 3 games of the season last year skewed Nix's numbers. He is what he is. He's at his ceiling. It's funny that you mentioned the end of last year, Eric, because I'd like to point something out. Over the last 5 games, including yesterday, the last 5 games that weren't played against the team's JV, and we know what game we're talking about there. Bo Nix's touchdown to interception ratio is 11-8. Even if you throw in the Chiefs game, okay, that makes his touchdown to interception ratio better. He still has 8 picks. Do you know who leads the league over that span in interceptions? Yeah, it's Bo Nix. So, yeah, some of the yardage, to your point, Eric, they have been up and there were some touchdowns. The guy's turned the ball over more in the last handful of games than he had in the previous 12. In fact, there was a stretch where Bo Nix threw 2 picks over the course of 10 games last year. It was a rocky start the first 2, but you can forgive that for a rookie making his first 2 starts in the NFL. After that, 10 games, 2 picks. Then he got to the end of the season, and his interception numbers went up. A lot. Why would that be? I'll tell you 2 reasons. One is, I think overall a kind of a good thing, and one is not such a good thing. The good thing is that I think Bo Nix, because of the consequence of those football games, really wanted to be the reason they won. Not for a selfish reason, but just, you've heard Bo Nix talk. He wants to be the hero. He wants his teammates to look to him and say, Bo Nix has got our back. Bo Nix can win us this game. He wants that. The feeling that the Bills have with Josh Allen, that's what Bo Nix wants. And that's what every quarterback wants. It's not a bad thing. It's not. But it is a bad thing when you couple it with this other part, which is Bo Nix maybe getting a little bit overconfident in his ability late in the season. Trying to push too hard, trying to do things that he was not at that point or yesterday capable of doing. Because while it's a good thing that Bo Nix wants to be the guy for his team, wants to be the reason they win, wants to do everything in his power, he has to understand what is within his power. And there were a lot of games down the stretch last year. You can lump this one right in with those where Bo Nix did more to hurt the Broncos than to help them. And had it not been for the fact that he was on the other sideline from Jameis Winston in one of those games, if it was not for a Jonathan Taylor fumble in another one of those games, if it was not for all the mistakes that the Tennessee Titans made and how they were unable to capitalize on seemingly any of Bo Nix's giveaways, we could be talking about a team that tanked at the end of the year, missed the playoffs, and started this year in the worst way possible. But that means something. When a guy goes 10 consecutive games, or 10, I keep saying consecutive, goes 10 games and only throws 2 picks, and then in the span of 5 or 6 games throws 8 picks, that's a troubling sign. That's a troubling trend, and one that Bo Nix has to get under control. And Sean Payton has to help him with that. Right? Going back to the idea that the game plan yesterday didn't do Bo Nix any favors. It just feels like the Broncos are getting a little bit ahead of themselves. Bo Nix, and take it as a slide if you want to. I'm not meaning it that way, but it's going to come off that way. He is still a game manager. He's like a game manager plus. Right? There's some things, his mobility, that is more than what you would expect with a game manager. But he's in his second season. All this is okay if they get it under control. But it just goes back to that tug of war between what I've been saying the Broncos are going to be this year and what Sean Payton has coerced the national media into thinking this team is. If you think this team is a Super Bowl team, you should be freaking out about the fact that Bo Nix has thrown more interceptions than any quarterback in the NFL over his last 6 games. But if you're a little bit more patient, if you understand that teams that have success with a rookie quarterback in year one rarely improve upon it, they either stay flat or regress a little bit. Take the Houston Texans, for instance. If you understand this is part of the growing process for Bo Nix to kind of push a little bit, okay, can I do this? Can I do this? Nope, I got burned. Okay, reel it back in. And this is where Sean Payton comes into play again. Sean Payton has got to know. You know, something gets lost in all of this with Sean Payton and what he did with Drew Brees and Teddy Bridgewater. Drew Brees wasn't a rookie when he had him. Teddy Bridgewater wasn't a rookie. What Sean Payton is doing with Bo Nix, we have not seen him do with New Orleans. He has not drafted and developed a quarterback. So this idea that you just take it for granted that Sean Payton's going to get this 100% right and Bo Nix is going to be everything Sean Payton hopes and dreams, it's not a foregone conclusion. Sure, Sean Payton, given it's the quarterback position, there's a level of trust there. But he's doing something he's never done before. And at times, through what, now is it 19 games that count? With Bo Nix, there's been times where you look and you're like, Sean Payton, you're not helping out your young quarterback. And I know Bo Nix more starts than anybody in the history of college football. This is the NFL. This is a step up. He's still young in that regard. But 8 interceptions over the last 6 games, more than any other quarterback in the league. That is a trend that is troubling, that is disconcerting, but one that is not totally you see it before in young quarterbacks. It's just a matter of Bo Nix acknowledging, okay, I'm pushing myself a little bit, need to reel it in. And it's Sean Payton, more importantly, going, okay, I'm putting too much on this guy's plate. I'm asking him to do too much. I need to reel it in. And there wasn't any of that yesterday. But only you and I can talk about Bo Nix's week-to-week progression because Sean Payton, you can't do that anymore with him.
We're not going to have a growth meter each week, in year 2. All right. He's in his second year. I love the player. All right. I get a chance to see him every day. All right. We can win. He can be a huge reason why we win games. And so we're not going to have that weekly meter. And so that's the first refused growth meter in week 1. I mean, that's crazy.
By the way, I agree with most of what Sean Payton says, but is he listening to himself? Is he understanding that Bo Nix is in year 2? I don't know that he does sometimes. But you notice, and that's the first refusal of a weekly progress report, which, by the way, most people ask about the play of the quarterback in every single post-game press conference across the NFL. Where is the statute of limitations? When is it okay to now ask Sean Payton about Bo Nix and how he played? I understand that the question is because he's a young player, but Andy Reid is asked about the play of Patrick Mahomes. Like, we're always going to ask about the quarterback. So does this mean no one can ask how he thought Bo Nix played? We're just done with that. And you notice that this is actually the second refusal of doing a daily or weekly update. Sean Payton not buying into your local day-to-day narratives. The other thing last week was the injury report. I'm not giving you a day-to-day prognosis on these guys. So it's actually the second time that you've said that a perfectly reasonable question is now not okay to ask you. But you notice that last week it was because it was being asked about Dre Greenlaw, who did not play on Sunday. So it was bad news that Sean Payton would have to deliver. And his assessment of Bo Nix could only be poor after his performance yesterday, but he doesn't want to talk about it. It's not okay when there's bad Broncos news. Like, it was a bad day yesterday. It was a bad day for the Broncos, and sometimes you got to face the music there. And you don't get to manipulate and be like, I'm not answering this. I mean, it's within your right to do it because you're a human being and you're protected by the First Amendment or whatever amendment would apply to Sean Payton in this case. But it just adds to how bad of a look yesterday was that someone can't simply just ask what he thought of Bo Nix's play. Sean Payton couldn't even muster a spin on Bo Nix's play. You can't ask that question anymore. They won. Yes, you got to keep that in mind a little bit. They won, but from all this other stuff outside the result can only go up from here, right? Has to. Not good yesterday from the Denver Broncos. We'll leave the discussion there. Return tomorrow. Much more on this. Got to get into college football because, my goodness, between what happened with the CU game and what happened with the CSU game, there's a lot to talk about there. Just kind of limited with the technical issues, and now with Monday Night Football coming up in about 3 minutes. So we'll leave the conversation there. I appreciate you jumping in immediately and adding to that conversation. Let's keep it going tomorrow. We'll go a little bit more in depth. And if you didn't have a chance to text or message into the show, you will have every opportunity, hoping that no cars jump the sidewalk tomorrow. But coming up next should be an interesting one. Chicago and Minnesota, our coverage from Westwood One next.